Hey, welcome to the DB channel, and today we do have a very classic matchup. Alright, it's going to be the Ichigo versus the Sukuna. They are both coming to the English side of things, but of course, you guys will only be receiving the set 1 support, while for the Japan side of things, we've already been playing for 2 sets of support for both Sukuna and Ichigo. However, that being said, of course, the fundamentals of actually playing both of these decks and actually the matchup is quite similar since set 1. And of course, the general idea is actually to have more 4K bodies than the other. And I would say both decks actually presents the same amount of disruption. Alright, they have basically 8 cards that can target the opponent's board, and they do have impact ones to end the game as well. So I would say they are pretty similar, and it's really dependent on which enemy you do prefer. And on the left here we do have the Yuji, which is Sukuna, and on the right we do have the Ichigo, and we do actually see the new Uetsu and as well as the new Rukia from set 2. However, these cards can actually easily be replaced, alright, with the set 1 cards. Basically just playing the active trigger as well as the other 3-cost Rukia. And we do actually see the Yuji dropping down vanilla. Alright, so the idea of actually dropping down the vanillas, the 4K bodies just like that, is to really build the presence of the game. Alright, because you do really want to start using these bodies to swing at the opponent. And if you were to raid, alright, you're actually losing 1 body on the field. And if the opponent do answer it, especially against Ichigo, where they do have special as well as the Ichigo himself. So for the Yuji, we do have the Yuji himself as well as the special. So the general idea is that if you were to raid over your bodies like what the right opponent is trying to do here, you actually are quite behind on board, right? If your enemy does have the answers, or rather hitting the special in the life would be very, slowing down your board progress significantly. Of course, we do hit into a draw trigger here, so it's not going to actually do too much to the board. And the second swing, we actually hit into another draw trigger. Alright, draw trigger is always welcome, and that's really the whole idea of UG deck, because most of their cards are actually draw triggers, and we do see the second figure coming down already, and the finger build up is actually pretty scary if left uncontrolled. And we do actually raid into the Sukuna as well, which is basically a stun. Now, the idea of the Sukuna is actually pretty straightforward. You stun the board and of course opens a hole for you to go for the aggressive turn, and of course allows you to search for the finger as well as a shrine, which is basically what you're really playing towards to. And we do have the special here, the Kete Ken or the Divergent Feast. I'm going to play down the other UG here, and we do have 3 4K attacks going through the life here. We do hit into a very fortunate active trigger here for the Rukia, so it's allowed to stand in the next turn, but we do hit a no trigger and do hit into another Ichigo raid here, and he does decide not to raid it because, you know, this Ichigo is the one with the impact 1, and really what you want to raid into is actually the 5-cost Ichigo, which is basically what disrupts the board. And we do have a new Ichigo, alright, from set 2. Basically a very strong impact negate as well as the impact 1 and damage 2 if you are playing towards a 0 division. So in the generic Ichigo deck, you don't really see the effects, but we do see actually building the board here as well as going for the Getsuga Tensho, removing as Sukuna. And Sukuna definitely is a prime target. You know, the idea is that you have the shrine, and we do hit into the color trigger, alright. So the shrine actually helps the Sukuna to really be a monster, and it doesn't actually have to be raided, it just have to have the name. I'm going to push up the Nobara up here instead, and then actually going for the Sukuna here, alright, drawing 2, discarding 1, and basically if I have 2 fingers, we do have impact 1 here, so which is pretty nice. And it's definitely going to be a target for him to actually kill off as soon as possible because it's an impact 1. We're going to go for the Ryuki Tenkai and then drawing this one, discarding 1. Drawing to another UG, which is very fortunate because UG are your double balls as well as the raid target. Alright, you basically have so much raid targets for the UG deck. You're going to see the UG just pushing the life here, and those UGs are actually the first few cards that the left player actually committed here. And you do see how effective those 4K bodies early game really help to do, or rather set the tempo of the game. Okay, so it's right player's turn here with 4 energy behind. He does play the 5th energy behind, and this definitely signifies the 5-cost Ichigo coming down. And what's unfortunate for the right player here is that we actually don't see any final for him so far. Alright, so the idea of this whole, I'll say this matchup is going to be very common. It's actually going to be seeing how often do you see the final, how often do you see the special, and how often do you actually see your, your basic targets. Alright. And Rukia is definitely one of those significant cards for the Ichigo purple that allows you to really see your cards more often. And we do see a second color trigger here from the left player here. And in these 4K matchups, the color trigger is just basically useless. And we do see the third one, which is very unfortunate, but this is how it is for the game. we do gonna go for the AP draw on the left layer here. And we do see more UGs, alright? We do push out the Panda here. And looks like we're just gonna go for the UG in the backline once again, and then going for the UG rate here, basically to remove one of the opponent's body. So now deciding who to actually bounce, I will actually choose the Ichigo, alright, the one without the rate here, because even if you push the Rukia back to hand and you don't see any Rukias on the field, the Rukia can actually be an AP2 pseudo active attacker. Alright, so if you can just have the Rukia in hand, just go and drop it down, then raiding the Rukia, he actually basically have the attacker immediately. But however, if you bounce the Ichigo, it doesn't really have ways to become active. So that's actually a pretty nice way to determine who you should bounce. But the general idea is that to bounce things that your opponent doesn't have on the field, so they actually have to commit more APs to actually go for that kind of play. Alright, so we're going to see the Ichigo being pushed up here, and the very fortunate color trigger, which allows him to actually maintain the board here. Let's go for the Ichigo in the back line. And looks like he does actually play the Rukia in the backline as well to actually hit that 5 energy. So very unfortunate for him, he actually doesn't see more double energy than he should. Let's go for the Kurosaki Ichigo right here, which allows him to mill top 2 card of the deck. Alright, and then of course kill off one more target here. We do kill off the UG once again. But you guys can see the 2 UGs on the left are still up on the game, because usually what you really want is to actually bait out all the specials and the destruction from your opponent. But those actually cost AP still. So, and we do see a fortunate second life special here, which allows him to kill off one of the Ichigos and then using the Panda to block the Ichigo attack. And this should really set the game here. And we're actually pretty close, alright? Both are at 1 life, but it's the UG's turn here. So he does push out the Nobara, alright? And then going for the finger once again to actually tap and the UG and drawing 1 and basically resetting the AP. And then going for the second final of the game, which is pretty nice. And looks like we're going to see another UG from hand. And then of course raiding it to the Sukuna, which allows him to stun one of the Ichigos, which allows him to actually go for that 1 swing, which is pretty nice. Looking at top 5, it looks like we don't see any finger as well as shrine. We're going to put that all to the bottom. And then with the final AP, I believe I saw a shrine just now. So we're going to play down the shrine, which allows him to gain snipe. Unfortunately, no impact 1. So this allows him to kill the Ichigos, which is pretty nice, and left with the 2 UGs to go for the swing. And looks like the UG does go for the win here, and the Sukuna does win the game here. Now this is the UG deck list if you guys are interested in. And this is the Ichigo deck list if you guys are interested in as well. Thank you for watching till the end, and do consider subscribing, dropping a like and a comment if you guys do enjoy the content.